Alrighty, beautiful. We are back, and we are joined by Richard Skaife, Michael Astone, and Michael Huttner for a panel on investment banking. Richard, I'm going to let you take the mic and go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Patrick. Pleased to welcome the two Michaels to Psychedelic Capital. At least won't have a problem remembering your name. Before we sort of get things, do you know each other? Have you actually have you met before?
I don't know if we have.
No, I have not.
Well, Michael, meet Michael.
Good.
So before we dive into things, just a very quick introduction from Michael Huttner, a little bit about yourself and the work that your firm does, and then we'll do the same with yourself, Mr. Astone.
Thank you, Richard. Michael Huttner. I live here in Boulder, Colorado. I work for Young America Capital, which is a 68-person investment bank, a broker-dealer based out of Mamaroneck, New York. I joined, my background is I'm an attorney, and my background's largely political fundraising. So, but about 4 years ago, I joined up with Young America Capital to work on their cannabis team. We've grown that to from about 4 people to about 15. And about a year and a half ago, a number of us on the cannabis team really dove into psychedelic companies and building up a network of investors in the psychedelic space. So now we actually just had our first conference earlier today where we had over 100 investors all around the globe, and we had 10 companies presenting for 10 minutes. So in short, we raise money and we do a lot of M&A in this space, and excited to be here.
Fantastic, thank you. And Michael Astone.
Great, thanks, Richard. And good evening, everyone. Pleasure to connect and be here today to speak about our background and what we're seeing in investment banking and the markets for the psychedelic issuers. I lead our global cannabis, psychedelic, and special sit investment banking practice here at Cantor Fitzgerald. Currently, we're ranked number 11th globally. We're a full-service investment bank, equity capital markets, debt capital markets, and mergers and acquisitions. Healthcare, biotech, pharma are core to our DNA. We are doing a lot in this space across the value chain. Many companies are looking to access the NYSE and the NASDAQ, and we've been leveraging our cross-border expertise. I've been very passionate about the space, having been in the cannabis journey since 2017, evaluating plant-based breakthrough therapies and medical cannabinoids. I've been deep in the psychedelic space since late 2019. Many of the family offices here in Canada that were seeding the cannabis issuers got involved in the psychedelic space. And to date, I've helped many of the companies that you would see here in the public markets raise capital, list through RTOs, find shells, and look to be active helping many companies do some more activity here this year.
Fantastic. So both of you have spent quite a bit of time in the space, deeply passionate about the space. And I think that sometimes is a bit of a common misunderstanding when you say, venture capitalists want to get involved in the space, investment bankers, what do they know about it? But I have to say that every single person that I've interfaced with from the sort of the professional financing world spends a huge amount of time and, sort of learning about it. And actually, Michael Huttner, I think when we were speaking earlier on today, you were talking about some of the stuff that you've done from a decriminalization perspective. Maybe just sort of touch on that.
Sure. Yeah. No, my background is largely political and working a lot on the decrim, both in cannabis and psychedelics. We're looking here in Colorado. We're looking to we looked at it last year on a poll. And while we had about just over a majority, about 52%, we thought it wasn't quite the threshold that we wanted to go to the ballot here for the Colorado voters. We're looking to go back to the ballot in November of 2022, next year, to look at something that's probably along the lines of what Oregon has done, but actually even broader, maybe broader than just psilocybin. And the goal, the one thing I'll mention, which we should all put on our radar, is in June of 2023, which I know sounds kind of far away. MAPS is going to host their global summit here. They're hoping to have about 5,000 or 10,000 folks come to Denver. So we'd love to have everybody that's in the audience here come to Denver and join us.
So you get to fuse a number of your passions together in terms of championing in the decriminalization and sort of helping to finance these companies. That's
right. I kind of look at it as what's exciting about what Michael and I both do is it's not only is it an interesting emerging new space, but it's also, the more you learn about it, this is true for cannabis and just as true, if not more so, for psychedelics. It's helping a lot of people that have been addicted to opioids or have had no alternative treatments, and other than having to risk being, charged with crime. So it's exciting what's happening in Canada, and hopefully the U.S. will catch up.
Indeed. Michael Astone, I mean, you touched on Cantor Fitzgerald, 11th biggest bank in the world in terms of its transactions.
Yeah, so look, Cantor Fitzgerald's been one of the oldest Wall Street investment banks. It was founded in 1945. I think, we all know what happened in 2001 with the World Trade Centers. The bank over the past 21 years has gone on a global rebuild. But I'd say we really started firing on all cylinders in 2016 when Sage Kelly, the global head of investment banking, joined, who was a healthcare leader at Jefferies. And he, together with Anshaw Jain, our co-CEO, and he was a former co-CEO of Deutsche Bank, developed a strategy that would be lead with healthcare, biotech, and pharma, and then fill out the rest of the coverage universe to be a force billion and be very helpful to the psychedelic sector with our institutional relationships to bring new capital into this sector that has been financed primarily by retail and family offices to date. But we are starting to see that change as recent of today with Field Trip's $50 million deal that was announced at the market close.
Indeed. I mean, in fact, one of the panels a little bit later on is the importance of retail and the fact that retail has really sort of helped build this category to where we find it today. But I think what's sort of super fascinating is the speed in terms of let's call it the serious capital, the sensible capital has come into the space. An ETF coming into the market in less than a year in terms of the space that we all know now. Where do you think, Michael Astone, where do you think that the market is going over the next 5 years? I do like a bit of crystal ball glazing.
So look, we're seeing a lot of companies work through clinical trials to develop new drugs with new molecules, new delivery technologies, whether that's sublingual sprays or topicals or capsules that can be taken every day from a non-hallucinogenic perspective. Many of the patents, IP strategies, clinic build-outs on the ketamine side, and then just really develop these new novel products and get them in the hands of consumers. The pandemic really put mental health on the radar, from anxiety and depression and all the many things that were caused by COVID. And now we're really starting to see this global movement to these natural remedies and plant-based therapies because, frankly, I think the war on drugs has failed. We have seen the opioid crisis and the damage that's done. But we're really seeing biotech funds come into the sector and bet on the science. They're making a bet on a management team that's done this before, that has the expertise and the bench to do this, that has the capital to execute, and has the science to back it up. And as we take these products through phase 1, 2, 3, as we get more nutraceuticals on the shelves of various health food stores or more clinics, you'll see these companies grow their market cap. So what we see many of the companies starting their journey here in Canada. We think they'll graduate over the NASDAQ or NYSE. We'll help with many of those companies doing that with their cross-border expertise. And then we see them tackling the global opportunity. We think it's north of $100 billion opportunity globally. It's not a rec play for us. It's a very medical biotech. And we think, like anything, any new emerging sector, there's been a number of entrepreneurs and that have been attracted to it. We think we'll see a wave of consolidation at some point where people are joining forces, business models are coming together to team up. But right now, there's been a lot of excitement around this sector, and it's good to see companies really cash up and fuel their balance sheet to have this next leg of growth into 2022 and 2023.
Fantastic. I mean, so what sort of trends? I'm going to pass this one over to Michael Huttner. What sort of trends are you starting to see now in terms of the type of companies who are coming into the market? What's the sort of the trend pathway?
I think the trends are where you're really the most serious folks and most of our larger investors are interested in the pharma place, in strict pharma, and they are looking to ultimately have what would be just like traditional pharma exit and FDA approval, and going through, as Michael had alluded to, all the trials and the necessary threshold. So it's quickly becoming I think what you're seeing is that it's not going to take years. You're quickly going to be able to distinguish which companies are serious because it requires real expertise, real experience, and quite a bit of capital to be successful, and which are more just doing it as kind of a pet passion, which most of those, I think, unless they kind of step up, are likely not to go for too long. The other part that you see as a trend is you're already starting to see what I would almost refer to as an ancillary market in this space. So while there's a lot of companies that are looking to do either synthetic or working with various psychedelics, there's becoming networks and others like data, like telemedicine, like the actual clinics, which will all be maybe not specifically actually working with making profit off of psilocybin or other psychedelics, but will be kind of like you have in the cannabis space, sort of an ancillary businesses that will also do well.
And just sort of going back to the cannabis word for a moment, the US market was very much built on a sort of state by state basis. Very few products. I think maybe only one product which is federally approved. Do you see companies now looking at doing things on a state by state basis, or is it very much a sort of a federal first play?
I would say right now it's largely Canada. And some of the countries like Israel and Canada, Germany, England to some extent. The U.S. is, because of our federal laws, is a little bit behind. Although there's a lot of interest from investors here, and there's a lot of money here. I see it. We're gonna because we know it helps politically to get things going in the state and local level. That's why you see cities like Chicago and Oakland and Denver and others. It helps put the push. But I think it's largely going to be a federal or quite frankly, most of the plays are going to be more global than local.
Super, thank you. Michael Astone, so at what point does it sort of become relevant to have a conversation with an investment bank? I'm an entrepreneur, I've got the recipe for the next big molecule, and I'm going to be looking to raise a couple of million in seed. Is it now a good time to give you a call, or at what point do you sort of start to get involved with companies?
Yeah, so we're very much in the business of backing winning companies with winning strategies. No deal is too small for us, and no deal is too large. I want to get behind the science. I want to get behind the management team and figure out where they're going. I know at other organizations, they'll have certain minimum thresholds of deals. They can't do anything that's below $20 or $50 million. That's never how I operated. I've always liked backing visionaries and passionate CEOs and management teams, people that have a vision of where they're going. And look, if they need $5 or $10 million of capital, we can get that for them. It might not be from some of the biggest institutional investors that are supporting the space, but we do have a network of family offices and high net worth and some more venture capital funds that'll help you. And look, if we're not well suited, if you're early on and you're raising your $1 million or $2 million of seed capital, we'll still give you advice where to go, which lawyers to work with, which accountants to work with, how to navigate the Wall Street, Bay Street, and help you along the way until you're ready to come up to an institutional quality platform where we can really help you do that next raise to get public and get liquidity. So that's what I would say. We're meeting with many companies. We're listening to the technology. We're having our analyst, Charles Duncan, vet the science, he's a PhD. And then we're going in front of our committees and saying making a case and a thesis why we should back you and why we want to get behind you.
Fantastic.